Xi Jinping is probably facing his toughest challenge since he came to power in 2012. He's facing a lot of criticism over his management of the coronavirus situation, especially in the early days from the West, that is Europe and the US. But is he also facing some sort of a threat to his power within China? That's what we're going to discuss in today's episode of Swarajya Direct Line. And I've got my colleague Tushar Gupta to explain it. Tushar, what do you think about it?
Hey Karan, see the challenge for President Xi Jinping of China is pretty clear. The virus outbreak, it has been a diplomatic headache to begin with because the virus which started out in Wuhan, China in the first 2 months of 2020 moved to Europe and then eventually to the United States of America. So it has become a diplomatic headache to begin with. But if you look at from a political perspective, back home, he's actually being his reign is actually being validated by the kind of lockdowns that were seen in Wuhan. Because the kind of lockdown that was seen in Wuhan, it's difficult to implement anywhere else in the world, given the kind of surveillance mechanism China has, given this kind of governance China has. It's dictatorial in its nature. So that is why Xi Jinping's reign has actually been validated. From a political point of view, he doesn't face much of a challenge right away. But yes, it's a great diplomatic headache.
Tushar, this brings us to the point of how Xi Jinping has been able to consolidate his power over China over all these years. Could you just give us a sense of what he's been able to do that he's had such a strong hold over the country?
So we'll have to go back in time a bit. When he came in 2012 for his first term, the world was still recovering from the 2008 financial crisis. So China saw this as an opportunity. It went on an infrastructure building spree. It went on a spree where it bought stakes in a lot of American companies. In fact, there were a lot of reverse mergers. What are reverse mergers? Basically, a company listed publicly in the United States had a merger with a company in China which was looking for market access in the United States. So China went on a shopping spree across the world. That is why you see Europeans worried right now because they've seen this before after 2008. So when Xi Jinping came, he was pretty clear that he wanted China to be the leader of this century. So what he did, firstly, in 2018 March, he removed the 2 term limits which he had. So as the rule had suggested, he would have been out of power in 22, but now he won't be. He is there for eternity or until he lives. Second thing, Xi Jinping, he's been on an anti-corruption spree. In 2012, around 150,000 officials of the Chinese Communist Party were punished or were, arrested for anti-corruption charges, on corruption charges rather. By 2016, this number had increased by 2.5 times to almost more than 400,000. So understand, he's been silently getting rid of all the rivals within the party, even at the lower ranks, to avoid any kind of political mutiny between the party. Because the Chinese Communist Party, it's not like our Lok Sabha. It's a very big party. There are a lot of provinces. There are a lot of local administrations that need to be taken care of. He quietly removed all his rivals. He consolidated power in the party within his, few chosen members. The one other thing he did, and this is the important point, there are a lot of committees, as they are in our parliament. There are a lot of committees in the Chinese Communist Party as well. He took charge of 3 very important committees. One which dealt with cybersecurity issues, 2 which dealt with economic reforms, and 3 which dealt with national security. Now let me come one by one to each of them, why they're important. When you get access to the cybersecurity committees or the committees relevant to those issues, you are suddenly looking at all the surveillance mechanisms deployed across the country. So you have a hold on how the surveillance is working out. When you talk of the economic reforms committee, you can take care of the debt bubble that has been growing in China, especially since they went on an infrastructure building spree. There are ghost cities in China. Right now, as we speak, banks are being bailed out. In the sense, most private banks are now seeing a greater share of the they're being nationalized in the sense. So you can take care of such things, which usually cause political revolt. Thirdly, national security. The activities in South China Sea are no surprise to anyone. Their pursuits in Taiwan, their pursuits in Tibet. So, Xi took care of all the important communities, which he thought would be instrumental in consolidating his power. So what happens? You cannot avoid you ensure there's no political mutiny to your rule. This is what he did, and that's how he consolidated power between 2012 and 2020.
Right. It's very interesting what you're saying, Tushar, especially because once you grab hold of the national security bit, then
Yes.
you're really going a long way towards exerting your power. And could you just talk about how this national security work that he put in terms of surveillance across the country, for instance, has now come to use for him during such a time of the
Right,
coronavirus?
of course. Now, see, if you look at the worldwide cases of COVID-19, we are looking at 3 million cases. Even if we take China's numbers head on, let's take the official numbers first, 80,000. Of course, no one believes those numbers. But even if people were made to believe those numbers, understand, in China, unlike India or America or Europe, people do not question the state-owned media. They believe it. In fact, they even back it on all the Western portals. So if we take 80,000 cases out of the 3 million across the world, it's not a lot of cases. It's actually not a lot of cases. In hindsight, you would actually think that Xi Jinping has done well, right? Second thing, there are simulations that if the Wuhan lockdown had not been in place, there would have been around 8 million cases in China, in Wuhan alone. Right. So now there is this validation for the surveillance mechanism. And it was a very, I'm afraid to use the word impressive, but it was because there was impressive contact tracing. People who were seen coming in contact with any person testing positive later, they were tracked down. People who came in contact with those people were tracked down. So it was a very impressive surveillance mechanism deployed, and it helped them curb that breakout. And in fact, there were a lot of European officials which actually took a hard call because they were earlier very skeptical of how China was using the surveillance mechanism. But after what happened in Italy, what happened in Spain, what happened in Germany, they actually took a hard call that maybe this works. And now Google and Apple are already working on a similar app. It's not as elaborate as the apps in China are, but you get the idea. They're using some of those lessons from the Chinese playbook to curb the outbreak. So yes, it's a validation of sorts. And now they will also be using this opportunity to export this technology across the world. Already there is a version of, there's a digital version of the Belt and Road Initiative. China would be using that.
And Tushar, just finally taking on what you were talking about, Z's methods being validated, there were
Right.
quite a few things that were causing him and China a headache, say
Right.
in the year running up to the coronavirus situation. That was, of course, the trade war with the US. There was
Absolutely.
the trouble with Huawei systems. Then also tensions in Hong Kong, Taiwan, over the South China Sea. Much of that seems to have dissipated, or if
Let
not
me
entirely gone away. Could you talk
let
about
me
that?
let me come to it one by one. Firstly, Hong Kong. See, Hong Kong was already under recession before the outbreak came into play because of the protest last year. And that protest had become a very big diplomatic headache because Hong Kong is seen as the gateway to China for the companies in the West. So you don't want a city as instrumental as this to be in the midst of a protest all year. And mind you, Hong Kong constitutes 3% of the Chinese GDP. So that's some serious number. Hong Kong protests for now are going to be taken care of in a way that already over the last weekend we saw numerous arrests being made for unauthorized assemblies that took place last year. So the Chinese Iron Fist will now be seen in Hong Kong. And somehow I can anticipate they will have support of the locals because even the locals want the economy to move on. Right. Second thing about the trade war. See, if Donald Trump comes back for a second term, you are looking at a trade war, a tech Cold War too, in fact, where companies, big tech of the West would be competing with big tech of China. But for now, the trade war is silent because the world is already under slowdown. So the last thing you want at a juncture like this is more macroeconomic volatility in the markets, which we witnessed during the trade war. Lastly, what will topple Xi Jinping current? It's very important to understand. Understand if China was to fire in an alternate universe Xi Jinping, it would not make for good headlines because that would make China look weak in the face of the West. So what could actually topple Xi Jinping's reign is economic slowdown. China was already registering a 3-decade low growth before the virus took place because of the banks not being in a very good condition, because of the accumulating NPAs, of the infrastructure bubble, of the slowdown in domestic consumption. What would Xi Jinping really need to do now after the coronavirus outbreak it has settled in China? He would need to go fixing the economy. If he cannot fix the economy in the next 1.5 year, 2 years, by 2022 there would be calls for him to leave the government, leave the presidency. That could happen, but that's a long shot from here because the way Chinese work, they do not work with the transparency India, America, or Europe does. So they have more leverage when it comes to cleaning up the banks or things like that. What Xi Jinping really needs to be afraid of is not the political mutiny as much as the economic slowdown. That's what I would conclude for now.
Right. And over the next 1 or 2 years, it's going to be very interesting for China also because they're heading towards the centenary of the Chinese Communist Party. And that would mean that there's going to be a lot of blowing of the trumpet and tooting their horns about how they've been able to affect change in China. Thank you so much, Tushar, for joining us.
Thanks, Karan.